Christopher Buckley. I have a long history with this fine congregation myself. I was baptized here at the age of 17, confirmed here, and even married here. I am delighted to be with you this afternoon to talk to you about an unusual instrument, particularly in the church, the bagpipes. The oldest reed instrument, the oldest of the woodwind family, is not the bagpipes. It's this, a piece of grass grown in marshes, tall reeds cut apart, slit a little bit so that a tongue comes up, and as air passes over it, it vibrates. It doesn't sound very good right now. It doesn't sound at all sometimes. But when attached to a tube made of bone or wood or even just a longer piece of grass, this becomes what the Bible might call a pipe. In Psalm 150, the 4th verse, it reads, "Praise him with timbrel and dance, praise him with strings and pipe." Theologians and musicians don't agree on what is meant by pipe. Flute players will tell you, well, of course it means a flute. Organists will tell you, well, there's archaeological evidence that it might just be an organ. We bagpipers, of course, we know best. We know that it must mean a bagpipe, right? It's a celebratory instrument. The basic elements of a bagpipe are, as the name would imply, a bag. Now, in the earliest varieties of a bagpipe, that bag was often made either out of the whole skin of, say, a goat or a sheep, or sometimes out of a bladder of, say, a pig. Very small bag, that. It consists of that bag, a tube into which you blow, and then some kind of chanter. Now, a chanter, in the context of bagpipes, is not the person who leads the psalm from the lectern, but rather is the melody pipe of the bagpipes. And when you see pudgy guys with beards in kilts marching down the street, that high, skirling sound, the one you just heard playing that melody, is the chanter. Now, the chanter on the bagpipes looks an awful lot like this. This is a modern chanter made of plastic. It's got 8 holes on it, which means it only plays 9 notes. It doesn't have a second octave. It's a limited instrument because it goes back so far. It's an ancient folk instrument, and bagpipes are found in almost every culture you can think of. Chinese bagpipes, African bagpipes. We think they originated in the Middle East. There is a stone slab from the Hittite Empire that is carved with what we think might be a musical priest playing a bagpipe, one made of the full skin of a goat and with just a blowpipe and a chanter. Now, to be fair, it may not be a bagpipe per se. It might be an underwater breathing apparatus because there's a salmon conspicuously close to this musical priest. We do know that ancient Rome did have bagpipes. Now, you've heard the old adage about Emperor Nero playing his fiddle while Rome burned. It may have been a fiddle, but we do know that Nero had and played a bagpipe. He was said to have been a fairly skilled bagpiper. We'll try not to hold that against him. The chanter is powered by a double reed like you would find on an oboe or a bassoon. In this case, it's real little. These 2 little blades of cane, made out of the same kind of grass that you saw with the other reed, vibrate together real fast and are set inside the chanter. Now then, the chanter gets plugged into a tube attached to the bag, which means unlike an oboe or a bassoon, the piper doesn't get to use their lips to manipulate the cane in hopes of getting a better sound. So it means there's a lot of setup that gets done on a bagpipe. One hopes there's a lot of setup done on a bagpipe to get it to play in tune with good tone. Insert your bagpipe joke here about playing in tune or with good tone. Now, the bagpipes are a folk instrument. Like I said, they show up pretty much everywhere, and they were usually made by just somebody sitting around a fire, drilling out a hunk of wood, picking some grass for the reed, and its simplicity is one of the things that gives it its distinctive, wild, folky tone to it. It wasn't until about the 1500s, with the MacCrimmon family up in the Highlands of Scotland, that the bagpipes developed into being a complex form of performance. And there's a big Scottish Gaelic word called pibroch, which is fun to say and impossible to spell. It amounts to the classical music of the bagpipe. It has a very specific form, a theme and variations, and there are all these flips and wiggles that you have to do on your fingers. They're fiendishly difficult, so I'll pass. But pibroch is essentially the height of music that generally only pipers like to listen to, if I'm honest. So I mentioned little flips and wiggles with your fingers. Now, because that little reed is stuck in a tube, we have no access to it. So, unlike brass and other woodwind instruments where you can articulate with your tongue, ta, 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 like trumpets or clarinets, I am separated from my reed by a big floppy bag. So instead, I play little grace notes in between the melody notes, which gives the bagpipes its skirling sound. The bag in question, I'll haul my own pipes out here. The bag is actually not made out of velvet. This velvet is simply the bag cover. It's the pajamas for my bagpipe, if you will. It often is sewn in a tartan to match a kilt, for instance, or another pretty fabric, often matching in the context of many pipers in a band. However, the real magic, the bagness of a bagpipe, is found back here. This is a sewn together bag made of leather. And then into that leather bag, we pour a certain kind of goop that we call seasoning. And that helps the leather to seal up and become airtight. There are ancient recipes for seasoning, each more grotesque than the last, and I have to think maybe they're pulling our leg with some of the ingredients. I'll leave that to your imagination. Now, the basics of the pipes themselves, the way it all comes together, is first there's a blowpipe, like this. It's not an imaginative name, but a descriptive one. It's the pipe into which you blow. That goes into the big floppy bag, like I said, and at the base of it, it has a one-way valve. Now, every piper is very thankful for that one-way valve because when I needed to take a breath, if I didn't have it, it would blow all the air right back into my face. Then we have the chanter, as described. This one is made by the Lowry Company from the early 50s, made out of African blackwood, which is the same wood that professional oboes and clarinets are made out of. Now, these big, long pipes, we haven't talked about those yet. These are appropriately called drones. Not terribly imaginative, but descriptive. They're what gives that distinctive hum sound that you hear behind an individual piper or a pipe band. And so, that's the pipes. It's a simple instrument, and regardless of the context in which you hear them, be it at a funeral, be it at the Edinburgh Military Tattoo with hundreds of pipers and drummers thundering through, be it that lone piper on a hill just practicing. There's something evocative about the pipes, distinct from any other instrument, and I am just thrilled to be able to come back here to my home parish and share the bagpipes with you fine folk. So I thank you for inviting me, and have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.